Alex Dumas has joined us. As we said, a lot of ground to cover tonight. And Alex, first of all, we had you on the show here prior to the start of the CSBK season, and if we'd have said to you then, you're going to be leading the Superbike Championship, going into the final two races back then, would you have taken that then?
I would have been happy because I know that all winter long we worked hard with Patrice and everybody that are in the team with us. So yeah, it's really a pleasure to be in the points lead right now. I know at Mosport I didn't have the best weekend that I thought I would have had, but I was still up there with the guys. So I'm really happy to get out of there with still the points lead. And I'm really excited for the last run at the Calabogie.
So, Alex, going into that weekend, I believe you did a couple of track days, and a week before the weekend, Riders' Choice had a track day. And from what I understand, Matt McBride hopped on a Suzuki 750 and took you around the racetrack for a few laps. Matt, of course, retired, but certainly knows his way around Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. How beneficial was that for you?
Well, of course, Matt, he's always been a really good rider in the Canadian Superbike. And I thought his 750 was a 600 because it was so slow. But I had some fun following him. And no, it was really great because I followed him for the couple laps of my first ever session there, or my second session. But it showed me like a couple lines where to enter, and no, it helped me a lot to get up to speed quicker. And yeah, it was fun.
So, I mean, the Superbike races that weekend, all three of them were incredible. 5, 6, 7 riders in the early going. And then for the most part, it came down to a 3-4 rider scrap. And then at the end, you know, it was you, it was Ben, it was Jordan. How much were you going flat out, or were you maybe playing the conservative card, just knowing that having won both races at Calabogie, if you just finished on the podium, that you're going to come out of CTMP with the points lead as you had?
Well, of course, I always want to win. Every race, I just tried my best to align myself to get the best result that I could. But unfortunately, Ben and Jordan are really good racers. And following Jordan for the last two, especially the second race when I was second place and I was following Jordan, he was really he had really really tight lines everywhere, so it was really hard to pass him. So it showed that he had a lot of racing experience at the Mosport. So it was really hard for me to pass him. But no, I had a really good weekend overall. I was happy that we got up to speed with those guys. And from what I know from other riders talking to me, that it's a really hard track to be able to win because it's hard because of the drafting, and you never know when you can pass, and you never know what could happen. And it's also hard to get a gap in the front while leading. So yeah, it was a really good experience for me. And if I do again the Canadian Superbike next year, well, I'll be more prepared for Mosport, and I would be looking up for it. But no, overall, I had a really good weekend, and I'm really happy with my results. And yeah.
Now you're going back to Calabogie, that, you know, obviously you've raced at a couple of times back in July. How much more confident are you going back to that racetrack as opposed to going into Canadian Tire Motorsport Park for the first time?
Pretty confident. With Patrice, we did something on the bike that helped a lot with traction, without losing anything about the handling of the bike. So at Calabogie, the the biggest problem for us, and also hearing it from other riders, was traction. So I'm really happy to go up to Calabogie and try out what we the change on the bike, and also test other couple things. So next weekend I'll be doing a track day at with Pro 6. So we're gonna be able to go test before Calabogie, and no, I'm really happy and pretty confident. I'd like to have a really good qualifying session to be try to be up pole or in the top three guys first row that I couldn't do in the first round. So it's gonna help me a lot for my start. And no, I'm really looking forward to it. I love that track. It's one of my favorites. I really like Mosport. They're both incredible tracks. So yeah, really looking forward to it.
Alex, in addition to trying to win your first Canadian Superbike Championship, I know you're training to be a pilot, and you've also been very busy at the fast riding school. That's one of your sponsors this year, along with Liqui-Moly. How tough is it, with that kind of a schedule? And where are you on the flight training? And how's it been going as an instructor at the fast riding school?
The flight training has been pretty good. I changed school for certain reasons, so it's a small change for me. Different plane, so it's just gotta work a little bit harder. But no, it's getting there, and I'm close to getting my private pilot license. It's going to be a lot of studies for the exams and stuff, but no, I'm really looking forward to that. And yeah, working at fast riding school with Martin, one of my dad's really best friend, his one of his buddies from track days. It's really fun. I love it. All the people that works as instructors there are really nice, and I love it. And yeah, I think there's a couple other dates still left on the calendar, so I'm really looking forward to it. And yeah, overall, I have really some fun teaching others my passion and my sport. So it's really fun for the sport.
Any young riders who remind you of a younger Alex Dumas? You're only 19, but you've been road racing since I believe you're 12 or 13. Have you coached or trained anybody at the fast riding school who we may look to be on the racetrack next year or even later this year?
I've never really coached people that are younger than me. One of the only riders that I've ever coached, he is racing in the Canadian Superbike, the 300 class, is Maverick Sear, Jeff Sear son. But overall, I've never really taught young riders.
Okay, yeah, I remember I was saying to Steve Baker earlier, you've been doing something a long time when you're announcing races the third generation. His granddad Bob Sear was a great 250 rider, and I think Steve Baker raced against him, I'm sure, at some point, whether here in Canada or the United States. Alex, we haven't quite wrapped up this season as yet, but this is the time of year where speculation as to where certain riders are going for the following season starts to come out of the woodwork. Any thoughts at this point for 2022? Was this a transition year for you where we might see you in Moto America Superbike next year, or are you looking at a second year in CSBK?
Before starting the CSBK year, I didn't know what to expect. I know that Ben and Jordan would be up there for the championship, so I didn't have any expectations. Of course, I wanted to be up front and win some races, but I just didn't know what to expect. And I really like the ambience of the CSBK paddock. It's I know Moto America was a really friendly paddock, but CSBK is like another level of just friendship and family. So I really like it. Everything for me, I have less pressure because it's more of my kind of program. So I like to put a lot of work in it, and also for some reason I just have a little bit less pressure, and it helps me to be able to get the best out of me. So as of right now, I love the CSBK championship. Well, I don't really have a plan for next year, but if I do, I would have loved to. I would love to come back to race in Canada. But of course, if I have anything planned for Motor America, I'd like to do it also. So it's pretty much up in the air as of right now. But either series, I would love it.
Stuart, I think we may have some questions or comments in the Q&A.
Yeah, I've got a few here, Pat. Just the first one, I guess Pat Barnes is acknowledging that he's old like you because he's raced against all three generations of the Sears. So he pointed that out. We had actually a couple of comments for Steve, who's still with us here, and that's from Andy Hill from down east. Says he believes remembering Steve race at Atlantic Motorsport Park, Shubenacadie, way back in the day.
Yeah, that was a fantastic area out there, you know, beautiful country. And the racetrack, I always remember it was quite new when the first year I went there. And, you know, it was real hilly, you know, and it was, it put a smile on your face to ride there, you know, because it was just a hoot to ride. And yeah, good memories. So.
And then from Daryl Fletcher, our friend out west, Pat, he points out that Steve Baker and Bob Work were the first guys he remembers from the very first time he went to Westwood. And obviously, Daryl was a well-known racer back in the 80s, front-running national pro rider. So it's great that Steve has left that kind of impact on other people, as well as Bob. And Pete Swedish wanted to thank Gus for the tribute to Jack. It was well done and well-deserved, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank
And
you,
then the
Steve.
only comment I had I wanted to actually ask Alex, I believe Alex is in his long-term goals or objectives. I thought I remember him saying he wanted to either be World Superbike or maybe British Superbike. Is something like that still something he aspires to do at some point in his career?
Of course, it's harder. It's harder right now to do a living out of road racing from what I see in the U.S. So I know there's more money in the World Superbike series, but of course it was harder at the time to be up with the factory guys, but people were making a little bit more money than what people are doing right now. So it's hard for me to kind of, I don't know. It's a dream for me to be in the World Superbike. That would be it for me. It's more a dream than kind of a career kind of thing. But if I get better and I get some a ride in Superbike in the US or something, and I can improve a lot more and get a little bit better, maybe win championships and stuff. Of course, that would be something that I would be really interesting of. But for me, being World Superbike would be more of a dream, I'd say.
Alex, mathematically going into Calabogie, there are 6 riders in the hunt for the Superbike Championship, but realistically 3, and some people would say probably just Dumas or Young. Those are the 2 guys. That 6th place finish in race 1, I think, really took Jordan Zoke out of a shot at the championship, although he came back and did what he had to do, winning the second 2 Superbike races. You've got a 10-point cushion going into that weekend. How do you approach it? Do you play the conservative card and just try to finish on the podium, or it's just too close where you got to go out there and try to win both of those races?
Of course, I'm gonna in practice and qualifying. I'll give everything I have, just to try to make everything easier for me to ride the motorcycle faster. But I don't know. It's kind of hard because I've never when I won my championships, I've never really had to kind of think about me being a little bit more conservative while racing. So it's new for me. It's gonna be of course a learning experience for me at Calabogie. But I'm not gonna change anything from what I do usually. So I'll just go out there and ride the motorcycle. So I don't have a like a conservative plan. I'll just race, and if I have to battle with the guys, I'll battle for the win. And yeah, I'm really excited for it.
When we had Jordan Zoke on the show a couple of weeks ago, I think he complimented both you and Ben and the other riders in that multi-rider pack that was swapping positions all over the racetrack, that it was a good, clean competition, and everybody, there was give and take. How would you describe that close superbike action in all three of those races?
It was one of the most fun races of my entire career as of right now. I've never really got to race that close with that amount of riders on the 1000s. I usually got pretty close with the 300 class, so we're going at much slower speeds, and it's a little bit easier to outbrake and do a couple things. But Mosport was just a blast for me. It was so much fun. Even if I didn't get to win a race, I had a really good time, and everybody was doing really clean passes. And no, I had really fun racing with those guys.
Now you're on the Suzuki, Ben's on the BMW, and Jordan on the Kawasaki. Among those three bikes, where did maybe your Suzuki have any kind of an advantage over Jordan and Ben's machines on that racetrack, or was it a trade-off? Each bike was maybe a little bit stronger at different portions of the track.
I know my bike setup was really good for. It had a lot of trail, so the bike would turn really good coming out of corners, mid corner until exit. So in turn number 2, I was really good to get out of there and have a better drive. And I was able to make a pass on Ben at one point in race 2 or 3, I can't remember. But and also one of the races, in the last lap, I tried to pass Jordan also on the outside there, but he pushed me all the way on the outside of the track, so I had to shut off. But overall, we each have our little stronger points of the track and weakest points. Compared, I think all the bikes are pretty good. It's just different type of riding and bike setup for different riders. We're not the same, so it's always a little bit different. But it made everything more interesting, because if we were all the same at the same place, it would have been maybe a little bit harder to pass a couple spots. But then it was just interesting to see how they would ride the track a little bit different from what I was doing.
There was the issue at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, and I just want to get your perspective on it, where the Q1 session had everybody, they took the top 10 riders on to Q2. You guys had the option to use the Dunlop tires. And then about halfway through that 20-minute session, the rains came. Originally, they were going to scrap all of the times out of that session and go back to the original 25-minute first qualifying session to set the grid. And then I believe 8 of the 10 riders who had qualified for Q2 filed a protest to use the times that came out of Q2, which was intended to set the top 10 positions. Take us through that whole process and what the discussions and the thinking was, because it really didn't affect you or Ben, but it certainly affected Jordan Zoke, because he ended up back in 9th, and it affected Tommy Cassis, who was, I think, a little bit further back on the grid there than he was at Calabogie.
Yeah, so from my perspective is that if in the riders meeting in the morning they would have told us that there might be rain and they might cancel a session, well, that's fine with me to cancel the second qualifying. But they started the second qualifying knowing that it might rain, so we put a new tire on. It wasn't the qualifying tire, but it was still a brand new tire. So we knew that I would just do a couple laps just to make sure I had a good time in. And probably the other riders, the front riders probably did it also. And I know that Jordan didn't came out first. I think I don't know what they did, but I know he got less laps than us. And then we had a good, like out of 20 minutes, we have a good 10, 12-minute session without rain. At the end, for 2 laps, it's starting misting a little bit. And then the last lap that everybody did, it was raining pretty hard in turn 5, 6. And I almost crashed the bike 3 times in that lap. So I just came back in the pits. But for me, when you start a session and everybody clocks in a time, I don't see why you would just cancel all the session and take the time from the session before. So for me, it didn't make sense to just cancel the time that everybody just put in. But yeah, that's my point of view.
Yeah, because as I said, it didn't affect where Ben started or where you started. And I think they went with the majority. 8 of the 10 riders wanted to use those times. And as you said, they were well past the halfway point in the session. Stuart, I think we got some further questions or comments for Alex or maybe Steve. I'm not sure which.
We have for both here, Pat. I'll just go through them quick. And I just wanted to point out with Alex that I was watching in corner 2 in that race too. And it's interesting he said that because that was my observation. He was trying to go around Jordan, just exiting 2, getting ready to go into 3. And you could see he had to get out of the gas because Jordan obviously came a little bit wide. And I thought for sure Alex was going to have that win. So that was unfortunate. But he's right. That was some of the best racing we've seen at CTMP. And it was like, reminded me of the old 125 Grand Prix races. Nathan Naslin has pointed, he commented, Pat, and for Steve Baker, that Steve and Bob were icons in the early and mid 70s as far as road racing in Western Canada. And one of the techs that Nathan worked closely with at Alberta Cycle, Paul Jacklin, worked in support to Bob work on a number of races, including snowmobile races. So Paul could never say enough about the genius of Bob work as a tuner. And he also remembers attending a party at Bob Work's place after a Westwood weekend. And let's just say it was an eye-opening experience for a guy from small town Alberta.
Steve, when we have you back, we'll have to get the scoop on those Bob Work parties. What else have you got, Stuart?
The last one was here that no names given, but when they started racing in 1976, his 2 favorite riders were Steve Baker and Jim Allen, and always wished that one day Bob Work would be tuning his bike.
Yeah, it's Jim Allen and Bob Work, truly truly a great mechanic and a great friend, and Jim Allen was a great rider as well. So okay,
Thanks, Steve. Alex, I guess we're coming up from this weekend, a couple of weeks away from Calabogie. You mentioned you've got a track day coming up there to maybe do some testing on the Suzuki.
Yep.
Your Suzuki teammate, if you will, Trevor Daly, didn't get a chance to look at the Constructors' Championship, but I would imagine that's still pretty close. A number of manufacturers mathematically could win it. What's been the conversation like, particularly at CTMP, between you and Trevor? You did have that 3rd place finish, I think, in race 1, and had a couple of other solid rides, was part of that lead battle for a good portion of all 3 of those races.
I didn't really talk with Trevor about the manufacturer championship. And when you go up to Trevor's pitch, he always talks about girls and welding and stuff. So it's pretty funny.
That
But,
sounds like Trevor.
Yeah. But no, we didn't got time to talk about the Suzuki, the manufacturer championship. I didn't even look it up. I know that coming out of Calabogie, we were in the lead, but I didn't check after Mossport.
Okay, yeah, I looked for it on the website. I didn't see it, but we'll get an update and add that to Nodell's notes. And Stuart, have you got the point standings? Thank you.
I do, Pat. I'm just actually going to skip through here through our slideshow because I do have. Did you want the constructors championship or did you want just the
I don't
individuals?
think that's I don't think that is updated, but yeah, if you've got the Superbike races here, Alex, race number, go back to race one. I just want to look at the Stuart, if you want to go back to race one, yeah.
That's it there.
Yeah, just so Alex, after winning those two races at Calabogie, as we said, consistent over the weekend to come out of there with a 10-point lead in the championship. But this is race number one. Ben took the win, but you had the fastest lap of the race, that minute 20.970 on lap number 9. It looks like that was a particularly quick lap because everybody had their fastest lap of the race. Do you recall that lap at all? Because it was definitely the fastest.
The only thing I could remember is looking at my lap timer, and usually when I saw the 20.9, and I knew that in the race situation nobody ever went below 121. So I knew that I had the race lap record until I knew afterwards that Jordan in the race 2 or 3 beat my lap time. But no, I just saw the 20.9. I told myself, because usually when it's the lap timers or my Patrice when he takes the times, it's always like a tenth or two slower. Because I don't know why, but my lap timer is a little bit quicker than usually what it is. So I thought, oh, that's gonna be a 121. So yeah, it's just a fun fact. But no, I don't remember that lap.
Okay, Stuart, race 2. And Alex second behind Jordan Zoke, and looks like Jordan had the fastest lap in that race. On the last lap of that second race, that Jordan got the first of his 2 wins. When you're going up that back straightaway and you're coming to the checkered flag, realistically, is it at the end of the straight going into 8 where you can make the pass, or do you think 9 or 10 is a passing possibility?
All that section of 8, 9, 10, there's 3 like coming into 8, coming in 9, or doing the outside of 9 and then into 10 in the inside. That's a bunch of pretty tight passes, but that could be possible. But I was just not close enough to make that pass. And Jordan's bike was really fast in the back straightaway. Actually, I couldn't really draft him, while he could draft me and Ben. So his bike was really legit. So they made good dyno work. But no, I just didn't have I just wasn't close enough to Jordan for make a pass.
And Stuart, race 3, as Alex comes home in third, and this time Ben Young had, but very, very close there. Ben Young had the fastest lap there, but right behind, in fact, 1/1000th of a second off, was Trevor Daly. So, you know, the parity that I'm seeing in terms of the lap times is the reason we're getting those multi-rider superbike races up front, at least early, with 6, 7, 8 riders. And are you expecting that same kind of close competition going to Calabogie?
Well, I hope so. I hope that it's going to be a really fun race weekend. One thing I know about Mosport is that with the slipstream in the back straightaway, it makes it even more interesting races, because even people who are a little bit like half second off the pace can be with the guys and are able to make passes. So it makes everything more interesting and more fun to race. But I think that Calabogie is more going to be whoever's not whoever's the quickest, but the people who are the quickest are going to be able to pull out a gap on the guys in the back.
Yeah, and there you see the current standings. Dumas, Young, Zope mathematically, as we said, some of the other riders down to Tommy Cassis mathematically in the hunt. But I think for all intents and purposes, it is a three-rider battle with Jordan is going to need some help. And then, of course, the UASA battery pole position championship. Ben Young has taken both poles. Alex, I assume one of the goals for Calabogie is to try to win your first Canadian Superbike pole of the year.
Yeah, that's a really that's one thing I'm looking up to towards to get a good qualifying session in, because well, at Calabogie was really at Mosport was I had a pretty good start, well, from the first row, but it'd be pretty cool to be to have the pole position.
Okay. Stuart, I think we may have some other questions or comments for Alex or Steve Baker before we wrap up tonight's show.
Yeah, just to announce the anonymous person that wished that they were Steve Baker and Jim Allen was our good friend Clyde Niggakeen.
Okay.
And Nathan Naslin has commented in that the Scott Miller Fast Company horsepower in Jordan's bike. Scott was very happy to see Jordan's bike was fastest up the back straight. According to onboard GPS, it was 297 kilometers per hour.
Wow.
They were flying. I guess the one thing we could ask Alex, Pat, I know we asked Jordan, was the little incident on the cool down lap after the third Superbike race at Mosport where Alex and Ben
See, I wasn't going to bring that up with Alex because we covered that a couple of weeks ago. But since you've brought it up, I'll let Alex answer the question.
So I came up after finishing race 3. We came out of 1. Ben was in front, and up over the hill in turn 2, I wanted to tap Ben in the back, and then he kind of, I don't know what he did. I know it's my fault from coming in the back and not paying attention, but he didn't really. I expected him to kind of turn a little bit, but he didn't really. So as soon as I came really close to him, we touched bars, and he crashed first. And then at that point, I knew that I had to either brake or just, I don't know, run off the track or something. But as soon as I looked up, there wasn't a lot of track remaining. And then Ben's bike was crashing on the left side of me, so I couldn't turn. The only thing I could do is try to take off, scrub out of as much speed as I could. And then I went in the grass inside the hay bales in the wall. So I just tugged the front, and I smashed my head in the hay bales pretty hard. But it wasn't really a fast crash. So seeing the other riders that were racing or qualifying, seeing them crashing that turn just made it a lot scary for me. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
I'm glad you're okay. I didn't realize you'd actually bumped your head. The last 2 comments, Pat, are from Daryl Fletcher at West, and one is saying that he'd love to see Alex and the national riders do a Western swing, as we all would. So maybe that'll happen in the not too distant future.
Yeah, we just need to find a racetrack out there. Area 27, I suppose, is a possibility, but yeah, I'd love to see the series go back to the kind of series when Steve Baker was racing, where it was Westwood in the west and Atlantic Motorsport Park in the east, and all kinds of other tracks in between, including Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, Mosport, and of course some of the tracks in Quebec that are no longer around. Stuart, anything else in the Q&A before we wrap up tonight's show?
just this last one, Pat, and it's also from Daryl Fletcher saying that he had the pleasure of seeing Steve do a few laps of Hannigan on a number 32 TZ 750 dirt tracker. It was amazing. Steve was his inspiration to go racing. And Nathan Naslin has said there is a track just north of Calgary currently being paved. I think it's more of a motorsports sort of club type of event or facility, because I know I was reading about it myself. But now we're all clear, Pat.
All right, awesome. So that is going to wrap up this edition of Track Announcer's Notebook. I want to thank Steve Baker for coming on. And Steve, we're going to get you back on the show in a few months when we try to do that reunion with Jim Allen and some of the other 250 riders from that era, including our good friend Doug Teague, who's been on the show before. Alex, all this stuff that we've been yakking about long before you were born, but regardless of the era, there always a collection of great riders. Steve, of course, won from his era back in the 70s, and I think we're proud to have you, the next wave of great Canadian road racers. We wish you all the best in a couple of weeks. Coming up at Calabogie Motorsport Park. And thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you very much, Pat. Thanks, Stuart.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Steve. It's really been an honor.
You're welcome.
And thanks for everyone who joined us on Track Announcer's Notebook tonight. We will see you next Monday for our Labor Day Monday show. Of course, this weekend coming up, BRRA are at Shannonville Motorsport Park, and I'll go do some car racing announcing at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. They have their Labor Day sprints weekend, including the NASCAR Pinty Series. So on behalf of Stuart Nodell, our guests Alex Dumas and Steve Baker, Pat Gonzalez saying so long for now. Be safe, and we'll see you back here next Monday night for the next edition of Track Announcer's Notebook.